everyone goes checks it out. Moving from Barcelona to Montenegro. It's just been up for a couple hours. I uploaded it at like 1 a.m. European time zone, whatever time zone I'm in. Spain and France and all those countries and Montenegro, we're all in the same time zone. So, whatever time zone that is, I forget what it's called off the top of my head. But good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching this from. So Trump and Elon today, as usual. As we know, they've been lying about Social Security and stuff like that. When I say they've been lying, I mean the senators. Of course, the president and the people that actually run the country know what they're actually doing with the money. Meanwhile, the senators want to make false accusations with absolutely zero proof. Elon never said he wants to cut your grandma's Social Security. He never said he wants to cut your auntie's Medicare. That's completely false. You can't believe the lies. And we've seen it over and over again from them. But we know what this is about. It's about the senators and the NGOs. They're all connected to the NGOs that receive billions of dollars, unfortunately. But go check out my new video if you haven't. Not going to spoil it for you, but it's right there. Hello, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Today we're discussing Trump and Elon, and also I have a new travel series, new video up right now. So if you're really interested in watching an American move to Barcelona, Spain, then to Montenegro, I have all those videos posted on my channel. Some sugar poison to get me started for the day. Anyway, let's watch the first couple clips here of the news. What should we start with? Let's start with something light today, some Maha. Make America healthy again. No one ever hated Maha too badly.
60% of our country now that has only one dream, which is to get better. And we need to give them a pathway to doing that. And the pathway is through food. Food is medicine. It treats us in different ways, and it treats our health. Health and Human Services.
I will say, since moving out of America, I feel a lot more healthy. So I got to agree with Maha, RFK Jr. here.
Joining West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrissey yesterday to further the Make America Healthy Again movement.
He's training this guy.
The idea that food is
he told him, he said, you look like you ate the real Patrick Morrissey.
Senior advisor, Callie Means. Callie, it's always great to have you back on Fox and Friends weekend. So tell about what he was doing in West Virginia and why this is so groundbreaking.
What Secretary Gideon is showing is that making America healthy isn't complicated. It just takes political courage that no administration previously has had. Now, food stamp, SNAP, is the fourth largest entitlement program in the country. It's $120 billion. And it's run by the states. And governors can ask the federal government what ingredients should be on it. And right now, Rachel, the top item on food stamps is soda. We are sending $10 billion a year from the federal treasury to soda companies.
If you're going to poison yourself, pay for it with their own money.
What Bobby Kennedy, President Trump, and Secretary Rowlands have done in partnership is ask governors to request a federal waiver. So each state in the country, West Virginia, the governor bravely submitted this waiver. Many governors from Utah to Arkansas to Louisiana are following. And this is clear leadership against the soda lobbyist, for American children, and just the start of the administration's efforts to make America healthy.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's truly extraordinary to think.
Children shouldn't drink soda.
Even liberals who think the government is the
That's
answer.
why there's 300-pound 12-year-olds in America and nowhere else.
Obesity
in Europe, or at least where I've visited,
food stamps.
I don't see 300-pound 12-year-olds every second of the day like I do when I go to America.
I mean, people
Okay, thank you for my mic. This guy's a damn moron talking about, oh, there's no wasteful spending in the government. Oh, there's no wasteful spending in Social Security. You don't think there's at least one dead person getting Social Security? I think there's 6 million, like Elon said. There's 6 million people. He explained it perfectly. The computer systems in the United States, they don't double check each other. They're not checking things over to see who's dead and alive. All they got to do is ask for money from the federal government. This is any government department. They have one bank account, just one bank account. They send the money out. There's no one double checking things. There's no one making sure there's no fraudulent anything. It's all just, the money's just pouring out, literally set it on fucking fire like gasoline to a fire. Like it just keeps burning and burning because there's no checks and balances. The computers can't even tell what's real and what's fake. Like it's crazy, and this guy wants to lie to us and tell us there's no fraudulent Social Security. There's fraudulent everything, everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's this or that. There's something, at least one fraudulent case in it. In this circumstance, I really do believe Elon Musk when he said there's 6 million fraudulent Social Security holders that are over the age of like 120 that are most likely probably 100% dead. But if you haven't seen my recent video on, moving, this is kind of unrelated, but if you haven't seen it, moving from Barcelona, Spain to Montenegro as a U.S. citizen, definitely go check that video out as well. And I'll play the clip. I'm going to go back a little bit so we can hear this guy again say that there's no fraudulent spending in Social Security. That's impossible. Every single government thing, pretty much everywhere in the world, unless people have checks and balances to look over it in proper computer systems, there's gonna be fraud.
True, and it is a pretext for them to try to privatize Social Security.
Lies! Another lie. Elon Musk has never said one single time that he wants to privatize Social Security. No evidence, no proof, no statement from Elon you can show, no rumors, not even rumors that someone heard Elon say this. There's literally no proof. All you're doing is making up blatant lies, saying Elon wants to privatize Social Security. He has never said that in his life. Who the hell is making this shit up?
Congress is this idea that there are millions of individuals who are fraudulently receiving benefits long after their date of death. That is not true.
How would you know?
It is a pretext for them to try to privatize Social Security. The Republicans tried to do it under George W. Bush. Senator Scott from Florida wants to do it again, and he is working with Musk to lay the groundwork.
He is not working with Musk.
Privatize Social Security.
Another lie. Rick Scott is not working with Elon Musk.
Well, we'll see where it goes.
I do not like Rick Scott, and he sure in the hell isn't working with Musk.
The specific number of people that are receiving benefits that are all, but we'll leave it there. Congressman Chicago Claus, thank you for taking time.
This guy just told you about 4 or 5 blatant lies. When you don't have evidence of someone saying something, when you don't have evidence of Rick Scott working with Elon Musk, when you don't have evidence of Elon trying to get rid of the working people's Social Security money, when you don't have evidence of him trying to privatize it, that's just called a blatant lie. That means you're lying to the American people as a politician. This douchebag is. Look at that smug smile. Oh, I'm lying. I'm getting money from the Democrats. I'm getting millions to lie on television from the NGOs that Elon's trying to cut.
More popular than he was at any point in term number 1, and more popular than he was when he won election. When you compare Trump.
Is there fraud related to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security?
Yes.
Usually people taking advantage of elders? Of course that happens. That is not the lies that Elon Musk is putting forward, though. What he put forward via Donald Trump and the joint...
Yes, that's literally exactly what he's saying. What are you talking about?
...address to Congress is this idea that there are millions of individuals who are fraudulently...
There's that too.
...long after their date of death. That is not true.
Yes, it is.
It is a pretext for them to try to privatize security.
Privatize Social Security, which Elon has never said, and there's no proof, and there's not even a rumor of him saying that. It's only just a bunch of Democrats repeating it over and over again. Nice, nice. Shows the intelligence. Guys, do your own research. If someone says something on TV about someone else, You can look it up. There is zero proof. Ask ChatGPT if any of those things he said were true, and ChatGPT will say no. There's no public statements from Elon ever regarding anything like that. He's never said he wants to privatize Social Security. Now, here's one they're really gonna cry about: DOGE USAID cut.
For more on this, let's bring in former Kentucky Attorney General and 1792 Exchange CEO Daniel Cameron, who is
Hell
also
yeah, this
a Senate
man I believe is a
candidate.
legend.
Daniel, great to have you here. Get to a number of injunctions in cases. But
Go
let's
check
start
out my
with this
recent
USAID
traveling vlog. I'm making a
ruling.
whole
As you
series
heard
about
from my
moving
colleague
around the
Bob
world. It's
Rivera,
really
It's a pretty
awesome.
big win for the Trump administration. What do you make?
And hit the subscribe button.
Griff, it is a fantastic win for the Trump administration and their perseverance. Judge Quattlebaum was exactly right. Unconventional doesn't necessarily mean unconstitutional. The fact of the matter is that President Trump was elected to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. USAID had become a haven for the radical left. Again, we want to see a president that is cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what he was elected on. You know, as a conservative, we've been talking about this for 30 years. Ronald Reagan started it, and Donald Trump is going to get the job done.
It's interesting you talk about Reagan, and Daniel, I can remember back in the 90s, I was working in talk radio. Rush Limbaugh was the king. He often talked about, any one of these examples of waste, fraud, and abuse would be a story for a week. Now we're learning them, and in the interview with Brett Baer, Elon saying that they have upwards of $1 billion fines.
I'm here to bring the truth. If the mainstream news isn't going to tell you the truth about Elon and what's really going on in the news, I will educate the people. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button.
A near regular basis.
It is absolutely ridiculous that the USAID program and the bureaucracy within USAID has been allowed to run rogue. I mean, we saw this back starting with the Clinton administration, where they were essentially trying to push population control through USAID. It's gotten worse, or got worse under the Biden administration, where they were essentially trying to push the trans mania, if you will, or transgenderism on other countries. And
with our taxpayer money.
That was bad for a whole host of reasons. One of which, the main of which, is that Americans don't want that sort of nonsense within their programs that are coming out of the United States. And I'm, again, pleased beyond imagination that the Trump administration is allowed to proceed with the cuts at USAID. Again, whether it's DOGE or any other part of the Trump administration, they are about making sure that government is working for the American people, and this is a step in the right direction.
Let me switch gears to the other significant ruling yesterday, and that is over the deportations under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. You saw Judge Boasberg put that temporary restraining order on it. A DC three-judge panel ruled against the Trump administration, and so the Trump team took this to the Supreme Court, asking them to resume such deportation flights as the Venezuelans and criminal aliens we saw taken to El Salvador, to that mega prison. What's your read on this? Where's this headed?
Well, I'm optimistic that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the Trump administration. Look, just this past week, you saw a ringleader of the MS-13 apprehended by the FBI. That's the type of leadership we need for this country. We've got to keep our folks here in the United States safe. Again, I'm hopeful and optimistic that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the Trump administration. It's important that we have safe streets for our communities. That's why President Trump was voted in overwhelmingly. He is the law and order president. He's going to get our streets safe again, and I'm optimistic and hopeful that the Supreme Court will allow them to continue their important work here.
And lastly, Daniel, I just want to address the overall general number of judges and injunctions. You can look and see across the past few presidencies, you've got 12 for Obama's 2 terms, 15 under Biden, 6 under Bush, 60 under Trump's first administration, and so far in just the past 10 weeks, there have been 17 injunctions. Do you see these courts really outside of their jurisdiction with these rulings?
Griff, what we have seen, whether it was when President Trump was still a citizen or even now, we are seeing the weaponization of our judicial system in a way that simply is ultimately trying to be an obstacle to the Trump agenda. It is obviously awful to see this happening. I'm hopeful that, again, once these cases make their way all the way through the process into the Supreme Court, we're going to get some good and favorable rulings that allow the administration to proceed and protect the American worker, protect American families, and make sure that we enter into this golden age that President Trump has talked about.
And just in the last 10 seconds or so I've got, do you believe there's a House hearing about these judges? Do you believe some of these judges should potentially face impeachment?
Well, I am pleased that the House and even the Senate are ultimately making decisions to scrutinize and hold these folks accountable. I think it's important for the legislature to make sure they're looking at these folks.
All right, Daniel Cameron, we appreciate your time and thank you for getting up for us on a Saturday.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget
Guys,
to
go check out my new travel
YouTube
video
page
about
for
moving
daily
from
highlights.
Spain to Montenegro as a U.S. citizen. You guys will love it. Very entertaining video. I'd love to hear where you guys are coming from, inside the United States or outside the United States. Obviously, if you see the title of my new video, I'm outside the United States, but I'm still a U.S. citizen.
It's different in New York because the passengers talk to you. In D.C., they actually message you on Signal.
Yes, exactly.
You don't have the
I'm like, wait, do I know you? How did you get added to my chat?
What are you doing on my chat? Who is DP on my chat?
Actually, in my Signal, you're under BS. Just kidding.
Shots
Jimmy.
fired. I feel like I'm in an Alec Baldwin movie.
I miss New York. One of the best places in the country.
Still can't believe that lady left her bong in my back seat.
That's what that smell is coming from you.
Shout out to the great Dana Perino, but I have to tell you, the Signal scandal is just one reason why our next guest actually carries a flip phone. True story. Joining me now to confirm it, author of the new book, Cal of Failure. Say hello to Steve Hilton in the house.
Cal of Failure.
You want me to get it out right here on this show? That didn't sound good. I know. I don't think that's what he meant. The phone, yes.
Well, I whipped this out.
It's my first time on the show, and this is the point you're running here. I saw you say on Outnumbered that you carry a flip phone. You really want to see it? Oh, I do really want to. Get into the book for 1 second. Oh.
I already know what this book is about, you know, the crappy California politicians. We already all know about that.
One of the things that always defines the left is how, when it comes to schooling and universities and all of that, they tend to gravitate towards, let's be frank about it, the softer, more sharing and caring subjects like, gender studies and decolonizing Shakespeare. While the right tends to prefer the real world of the hard sciences. This is the sort of thing why engineering schools are so often the last bastion of soundness at many schools. And it also explains this presumably lefty Elon Musk hating road rager type defying all the laws of physics by trying to take on a Tesla, and, well, they just didn't get it. Have a look here. We see the anti-Tesla truck come flying up here. They're going to try and break short on this, make life difficult for the Tesla driver, and then they are off, and oh, wait for it, they are going to try and make a turn here. They have been harassing the Tesla, and boom!
Karma! 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 Don't harass American citizens. Don't harass your own citizens, and karma won't come for you.
For that one, and blame Elon Musk, but hey, that was just buff out. Anyway, of course, there is more going on than just deranged anti-Elon Musk activists. The American media is, of course, also having its own car crashes. Take a look at this exchange, which happened on CNN a couple of days ago, which I think represents both a masterclass in explaining how the American mainstream media works, flooding the zone with whatever they deem to be the big negative story of the day about Trump, while also ignoring their own failings, like, say, CNN's loss of a $5 million defamation payout that they were forced to make to a Navy veteran turned private contractor that they had unfairly and inaccurately accused of doing unsavory black market things in Afghanistan. Now, keep that story in mind here as you watch CNN's Caitlin Collins try to drill Veterans Administration Secretary Doug Collins, no relation, by the way, over this mini scandal that keeps playing on about the White House and the use of a Signal encrypted messaging app to discuss war plans, because this exchange also gives you a masterclass for conservative politicians in how to deal with this sort of treatment.
Do you believe that a mistake was made here, though, to have this conversation, to add a reporter, and to have it on an unsupported, classified group setting?
Caitlin, as I've just told you, I've just answered the question. I wasn't a part of it, and I'm not going to speculate more than what the president's already talked about, and those who've been involved have talked about. But we'd love to talk about the veterans.
Well, fair enough, but do you think Caitlin was just gonna leave it there? Oh, no, not on your life.
Not on your life.
Yeah, and I do have questions on the veterans, but given what we saw with the group chat and how this was used, you are a member of the cabinet. You obviously know these other members, several of them who were in there. Is this typical for the cabinet to have conversations over Signal? Is this something that you use?
Well, Caitlin, as soon as you undoubtedly do not want to talk about the VA, I have a question as VA Secretary. As Cabinet, I want to ask you, because I've been curious about this, because my job is to take care of veterans, and I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida, where you just had a $5 million defamation suit, taking offense at a veteran who was trying to help people. In fact, one of your employees actually said, "We're going to nail him." I have a question for you, Caitlin. Is that employee still employed?
And he wasn't done yet.
I'd like to hear from CNN as the Veteran Cabinet Secretary why CNN seems to have a problem with veterans.
Well, Mr. Secretary, respectfully, my question was about whether or not you as a member of the cabinet use this, and respectfully, I'm conducting the investigation.
And that, folks, is how it's done. Turn it around, make the media answer the questions that they don't want to. And just on that, while official Washington loses its mind over the cabinet members using the Signal app to discuss an airstrike on Houthis in Yemen, calling for resignations and the like, to turn that around again, it is also worth pointing out that there was far less press scrutiny, and I think were any calls for resignations during the failed Biden administration's pull from Afghanistan that left 13 service members dead and billions and billions of dollars of equipment and weaponry in the hands of the Taliban. I'm not the only one saying that. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance addressing this very problem.
I find the American media's obsession with this issue very, very interesting, because I I happen to remember about 4 years ago when American military leadership made a catastrophic error that got 13 innocent Americans killed in Afghanistan and had about $80 billion of military equipment turned over to one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. And for years, the American media ran cover for a Biden administration that refused to fire any generals or even launch an internal investigation that was meaningful and substantive about what happened. And now the same American media that covered for the Biden administration after the untimely death and the unnecessary death of 13 brave Americans is really, really interested in forcing the president of the United States to fire someone because of a signal chat.
Vance is right. This double standard is ridiculous, and it is why it is important to remember that so much of what we are seeing now, so much of the outrage in so many areas, be it in the media or academia or anywhere else, comes from the fact that everyone in all these institutions had assumed that the Democrat big swamp grift was going to go on forever. And so what did they do? Well, they set up a whole bunch of rules about how things would work and run without ever imagining Donald Trump could ever win and turn the whole power structure around on them. So, sorry guys, but for now at least, it's game over.
Game over. Check and mate.
More pro-Hamas protests breaking out at Columbia University today.
They really
Just
do
after
got
the
zero
Ivy League's interim
protest.
president
They really do
resigned
got
over
zero
the funding
brain
fight with the
cells.
Trump administration. CB Con is live at Columbia University with the latest. Hey, CB.
Hi, Nicole. Will it cost anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 a year to attend Columbia University? But, despite that sort of investment, a group of graduates came here today to denounce their time at the elite school by ripping up their diplomas.
What a bunch of spoiled brats.
Recently, Columbia began revoking the degrees of
Even if you have a scholarship here, you're literally still because you got to get so much money just to pay for the other things too.
protesters. Well, you can have mine back whenever you want.
These protesters are upset
What
over
about
the
a bunch of
ongoing negotiations
morons?
between the White House and Columbia as the Ivy League
How
tries to get
stupid
back
you gotta
hundreds of
be?
millions in federal funding pulled by the Trump administration, which said Columbia failed to protect Jewish students during the ongoing protest over the Israel-Hamas war. Dr. Katrina Armstrong, who helped lead these negotiations, is now stepping down and returning back to her old job with the Ivy League. It comes after a series of reports about closed-door meetings where faculty were left concerned that Armstrong was presenting one message to the White House while internally downplaying the policy changes to colleagues. Armstrong, she tried to save face, calling those reports unequivocally false, but it appears it was not enough. And now Board of Trustees co-chair Claire Shipman has been named the acting interim president, and Columbia says she'll serve until the board completes its presidential
You gotta be an
search.
actual
She's a former
moron
TV
to rip up
journalist
your
and
degree that you paid
co-author of several books on
$150,000
women's
per
empowerment.
year
Her husband
for.
is Jade
For a
Carney,
piece of
a
paper
member.
you paid for
He
that. Now you
suppressed
want to rip it
secretary
up?
for former President Barack Obama. Now the chaos for Columbia's leadership.
Go check out my new
comes
video,
as
by the way.
Mahmoud
I'm
Khalil,
traveling
a Columbia graduate
as an
and
American
Palestinian
citizen,
activist,
living in
remains
Spain,
behind
moving from
bars in
Spain to
Louisiana.
Montenegro.
DHS
Really
says
interesting.
he led activities aligned with Hamas here at Columbia. His attorneys, though, deny that allegation. Back to you, Nicole.
Hey, CB, do we know what the Trump administration demands were that the university actually agreed to that kind of is starting or sparking these protests?
Yeah, Nicole, so the Trump administration wanted to see a new mask ban, new protest rules, and new security officers with the power to arrest or remove some of these student protesters. Columbia University agreed, and and made these concessions, because what we saw during a lot of the protests last year is that some of these students, even outside agitators, would come on campus and they would hide behind these masks and commit acts of violence in some cases, especially towards property on campus, leaving students, Jewish students especially, very, very scared.
Hey, CB, let me ask you about the change. I know we read that there was a change in leadership over at Columbia, and the new interim president is someone that I think a lot of people who watch TV news in particular may be familiar with. What can you tell us about that change at the top?
Well, Claire Shipman, yes, she has been named the new interim president here at Columbia. And right now, negotiations are still going on between the Ivy League and the White House. So she will step up to help lead those negotiations.
Everyone go check out my new video about moving from Barcelona, Spain to Montenegro, if you haven't already. Much appreciated. It's right here. So yeah, go check that out.
Now, and what we do know is that the Federal Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism released a statement just yesterday saying that they feel the Board of Trustees took the right step by naming her, especially when it came to light and media reports that the previous interim president, Katrina Armstrong, might have been presenting a different image privately about how she felt on these concessions.
Stevie, Lisa Booth here. Well, first of all, you've done such a great job covering all these protests. We saw some of the protests last year. They became violent. How do those compare to what you've seen this year?
Lisa, I would say the tone is definitely stepped down this year. And for all the criticism that the Trump administration has taken about its crackdown on these protests, it appears it has worked in the sense of bringing the temperature down on campuses across the country, whether you agree or disagree with the crackdown. We are noticing
It's
that
facts.
protests do happen, especially here at Columbia University. The tone is
It's
it
facts.
de-escalated, and we're seeing less
De-escalated. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I understand that some of the family members of the hostages held in Gaza are suing. What are they alleging?
So they are accusing some of these pro-Palestinian groups of spreading Hamas propaganda. And in one specific allegation, they accuse one of the pro-Palestinian groups. They allege that this group had prior knowledge of the October 7th Hamas attack. Obviously, that's a very serious allegation. My colleague, Alexis McAdams, reached out to that group. She has not heard back to my knowledge. But this is a story to watch here, because we know the Trump administration is taking these ongoing demonstrations very, very seriously, with the goal of protecting Jewish students and making it an environment where everybody can learn of all faith backgrounds.
Yeah, those are very serious allegations. CB Cotton, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks, CB.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling.
Now this part is
analysis.
hilarious.
You will
This
not
MAGA hat snatcher fell on her face.
From last week with the instant karma lady who went flying to, tried to grab a MAGA hat and
Yes, let's have a look here. For those who didn't see it here, here's what happened on a New York City subway about a week or so ago. Have a watch this. And down she goes. Look, we've got an update on this story here, because that woman has been identified, and you're not going to believe this here, as a creative director. Right? A creative director for a number of big luxury brands that you would have heard of. So, you know, very nice for her to deign to take the subway and then try. Wow. But also, she's also an Italian-American citizen, and I don't dual national. I don't think she voted for Maloney.
Well, yeah, she's what we were talking about previously, that awful phenomenon, affluent white, female, liberal, as they call them, lefty. And
She's losing her mind. She has a conservative president, a prime minister in Italy, and a conservative president in the U.S. No wonder she's crying all day and snatching hats off people.
So very high end, very affluent. But a point you made there about Afghanistan, which shocks me that the media still after this did not try to hold the Biden administration accountable. Because remember, they had an airstrike in the aftermath of that to supposedly kill those who were responsible, and they killed a aid worker and his young family. There was, I think, 6 or 7 young children who were murdered wrongly, and they acknowledged they got it wrong, and yet again nobody lost their job. Nobody. There's this picture of some of the children who were killed in that airstrike, and to this day no one has lost their job other than possibly President Biden after
they're all upset about the signal chat.
They're all upset about the signal chat, and look, the signal chat was, incautious, and whoever added that Jeffrey Goldberg guy from The Atlantic really should, be cashiered, because that is absolutely inexcusable. Because here's the thing, the Trump administration is about bringing America back to responsibility and people taking responsibility for their mistakes. So there needs to be some accountability on that, but it's not a hanging offense for the whole administration. Let's put that aside. Remember though, the history of this, when America, was the great nation that Donald Trump wants to get it back to, after Pearl Harbor, President Franklin Roosevelt fired the general who was in charge of the Pacific. Said, this happened on your watch, you're out. What happens after Afghanistan? Well, everybody rallies around, Mark Milley and everybody else and the Pentagon and says, oh, look, all of these, people who are all doing all the diversity stuff in Washington, that hasn't distracted them from their main mission. But of course, it clearly has. And there's been no accountability. This is what the Trump administration needs to do. It needs to bring back responsibility for these things.
And they can start by firing that Steve Witkoff bloke. He seems to be a complete joke. But anyway, that's a different story. I want to talk about the Middle East briefly, Rita. We've seen these demonstrations in Gaza from some very brave individuals who are protesting, Gazans protesting against Hamas. The media doesn't fit the media narrative, so the media is barely touching it. We're not seeing the demonstrations on the streets of Sydney or the Opera House supporting these characters against Hamas, which is what we should be doing. Our politicians should be encouraging this. Because what's going to happen? Only one of two things. Either Hamas is going to wipe these characters out, or, as I passionately hope, Hamas is on the point of being wiped out and is now so weakened that people in the Gaza Strip feel emboldened to turn against them. But what we don't want to see is a situation where Hamas remains in power and we end up with so-called elections and Hamas returns. So that's got to be avoided at all costs. The West needs to be getting behind these people if it's legitimate and encouraging any kind of dissent against Hamas.
It's interesting that after, 18 months of protests, pro-Palestinian protests, we haven't seen a single one that I'm aware of in the West that is anti-Hamas.
I know.
That is pro-Palestinian but anti-Hamas, because as we know, Hamas are absolutely brutal Islamist terrorists, and the way they treat their own, the way they treat those who they think have defied their orders is absolutely sadistic. So that we don't see that at all says plenty.
But this, to me, James, this is Donald Trump's vision for Gaza coming to life. Donald Trump said people would voluntarily leave. Now, if Hamas is defeated, we're going to see people like that voluntarily leaving, and some will voluntarily come back after Gaza is restored.
I think we also need to be careful, though, because, how many times in the Middle East in the last 20 years, remember the Iranian Revolution, Rita, you know about this, started out looking like it was a liberalizing movement. Of course, the liberals gave way to Khomeini.
When the left and the Islamists get together, it never ends well.
Yes, the students and the Islamists.
But you've got, I have been researching this, and there's a terrible report that one of the leaders of these protests in Gaza has been tortured and killed by Hamas. So, of course, we knew that's going to happen. There is some question about who's actually backing these protests. The PLO might be behind them as well.
You've got to be suspicious.
There's not going to be any peace there until there's an actual occupation by some sort of multinational force.
No, by Israel. You need Israel to occupy it. You need Hamas wiped out. That's what we need to see.
Hamas wiped out.
Yeah, and that can only happen with an Israeli occupation. But the real story was what happened to Iran in the so-called Green Revolution, where the West stood back and the poor people of Iran
That was Obama.
were terrorized. Yeah, let's talk. Yes. Anyway, want to talk briefly. Let's have a bit of humour. I've got to have some more humour. Kamala Harris always provides humour, but guess what? She's coming to Australia to provide some humour for us. Now, I don't know if this is a joke or someone's done this as a spoof or whatever, but the claim is on Instagram that Kamala Harris is going to talk at some Queensland real estate function later in the year.
April Fool's already? Is it an early April Fool's?
I can just imagine the speech. Towers on the Gold Coast, unburdened by what could have been and burdened by what we see.
Maybe this is what Kamala Harris should be doing. She should become, a real estate agent. She should be out there every Saturday flogging houses.
Venn diagrams.
Saying, here's a Venn diagram of what you could do to this living room. The living room and the dining room are Venn diagramming together. This property is unburdened by what has been in terms of heritage restrictions. There's so many ways that Kamala Harris could go with this.
I do hope she comes out, Rita. That would be so much fun.
Hilarious.
She better not run again in 2028. She doesn't stand a chance.
Imagine a real estate institute of any sort of description, because real estate agents are typically self-employed types. They normally care about economic management, so to have her come and share her word salads doesn't really make sense.
It's a building. A building is a building. It's where they build the building and you buy the building. Anyway, we can have lots of fun with Kamala Harris for hours.
All right, Lisa. So we've got these guys doing the Tesla protest thing, and it's their day of takedown or whatever.
Screw them.
What do you make of all this stuff on a beautiful Saturday?
It's like their day of rage, but every day is their day of rage. Also, Kevin, that was very nice of you to lend him your pocket square. You didn't offer that to me. Nicole, did you? Yeah, that's very nice of you, though. But so I was watching a lot of the coverage earlier today, and I thought to myself, these people are dumb. But they are also dangerous, which is why we can't ignore them. I'll get to the dumb part first. So some of the signs that we saw them carrying. It said to burn a Tesla to save democracy. Previously, they were telling us that you had to buy a Tesla to save planet Earth, an electric vehicle. Now they're saying we have to burn them to save democracy. How exactly would that save democracy by burning a Tesla? Right. Another sign said that Elon Musk is inept. The guy that just saved 2 astronauts from the International Space Station and also has donated Starlink to give free internet service to hurricane victims.
They're paid protesters.
People are dumb. We've covered that. Now
mark my words, they're paid protesters. The truth will come out.
Teslas, firebombing pregnancy centers, 2 attempted assassinations against Donald Trump, an attempted assassination against Lee Zeldin when he was running for governor in New York, an attempted assassination against Justice Brett Kavanaugh outside of his house, attempted assassination in 2017 by a Bernie Sanders supporter of Republicans practicing for the congressional softball field, almost cost Steve Scalise his life. And then you get to the summer of riots, or they call it the summer of love, right. Which is, they probably do think it's the summer of love in their twisted minds, burning down cities in the name of justice. So these people are both dumb, but they're also dangerous.
And a lot of the inspiration for this, I guess, comes from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's been a favorite.
Dumb and dangerous.
Yeah, you could say that. Maybe she's a favorite of the media. Listen to them fawn over her.
Jasmine Crockett continues to really, bring the heat onto this administration, making, throwing firebombs.
Let's give a huge shout out to Jasmine Crockett. She is one of the younger voices in the Democratic Party that has been very vocal.
There have been shining stars, no question about it. AOC Jasmine Crockett's been phenomenal. She's a superstar.
Nicole, do you put her in the shining star category?
Well, I think she's a master of performative outrage for certain. I did not have Democrats protesting EV vehicles in 2025 on my bingo card. I mean, just if you think about it, California, by 2026, 35% of all cars are supposed to be EV vehicles. And now all of a sudden, just because one person has done something that they don't like, they've completely thrown away all of their principles, which they have stood on for the last 4 years. And that just shows you how lost the Democratic Party is right now. They clearly do not believe what they preach to us, what they say to us, because if something happens, they're quickly to abandon anything that they have stood for the last 4 years just to now protest. So I think it is really outrageous. The only person hurting right now are the individual Tesla dealers. Elon Musk, I think Forbes says his worth is $320 billion. He only owns 12% of Tesla. By burning the average American car who bought that EV car to try and do something for the planet, that's all you're doing. You're hurting average Americans. Elon Musk is like not paying attention to what they're doing.
Right, and Kevin, you know, I think this is all supposed to look attractive to people. Like, come join the protest, be a part of the movement, have significance in your life. When you watch these protests, do you feel the urge to join? Is that
No.
affiliation?
You know, the
I think they're
strange part
paid.
about this, Brian,
Why
is
else
you're
would
exactly
anyone
right,
do
but-
this?
But I find, at least politically speaking, I know I come from Washington, people forget soccer moms love EVs. A lot of Americans who live out in the suburbs and the exurbs, they're driving these cars because they want to have great fuel efficiency. You're hurting the very people that might have supported your party before this whole action. And I should also add this too. This doesn't invite or welcome anybody into your thinking and into your party. I was there during the summer of rage or love or whatever they wanted to call it. And I remember distinctly being there at St. John's Church, watching them set it afire, ablaze. That made a lot of people say, I don't want to be a part of that. And I think this behavior makes a lot of other people who otherwise might be Democrats say, you know, that's a bridge too far for me.
To Kevin's point, I am a soccer mom, and I do live in the suburbs, and I drive a hybrid.
There you go.
Still like a little bit of gas, just in case.
Just in case, smart.
Even that sign we just said, Elon Musk is not my, duh, of course he's not. President Trump's like, you're so, these people are just so dumb.
The sign said Elon Musk is not my president.
Of course
Your
we know.
terms are acceptable. Let's move on.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
Let's bring in Florida Congressman Aaron Bean. He's co-chair of the DOGE caucus in the House. I want to put on the screen
Florida man mentioned.
some of the cuts that Elon Musk's DOGE committee have made because they are substantial. He says it should be fairly easy to get to $1 trillion in government spending cuts. Do you agree? That seems like a huge amount of money.
John Scott, it's great to be with you. I think it's a good start. It's a good start. And the more I watch your coverage of just people having a meltdown, where you've got Elon and his team working to find waste, fraud, and abuse, who could be against that? And it seems that just misinformed people don't understand how fragile our government is, how our government can't pass any type of reasonable audit. So we support a complete review of how we spend money and the process of which we do so. It's long overdue. And to the American people watching right now, if we don't, we will go belly up sometime in the near future.
I believe one of the items that caught my ear is when the DOGE committee announced there were 1,800 people at the Social Security Administration whose job it is, their only job is to hand out iPhones to various members of Social Security. And they indicated that they could do 2 of those a day and cover, each person could hand out 2 phones a day and cover the entire workforce. It seems like an extraordinary amount of waste.
It is an extraordinary amount of waste, and the spotlight is being shined. And again, I'm still trying to grasp, John Scott, who could be against waste, fraud, and abuse to preserve our way of life, to preserve the promises. Our country has made so many promises to seniors, to veterans, and this is our way of getting financially healthy so that we can make those promises. I think it was at the IRS that has those 1,400 employees that their only job is to give out a cell phone or a laptop, and they could do it within a month, yet here we are. John, you have to remember, too, the Biden administration added over 200,000 federal employees. It was one of the largest growths of our federal government since the 1800s. So they're only, they're right-sizing. It has to be done, Sometimes it's when you go through change is not easy, but in order to get healthy financially and otherwise, We have to do it.
You talk about keeping our promises to veterans and seniors. Here's some of the talk about protecting Social Security by the DOGE committee. Listen.
As a result of the work of DOGE, legitimate recipients of Social Security will receive more money, not less money.
There are over 15 million people that are over the age of 120 that are marked as alive in the Social Security system.
They get phone calls every day of people trying to change direct deposit information. So when you want to change your bank account, you can call Social Security. We learned 40% of the phone calls that they get are from fraudsters.
15 million people over the age of 120 in this country apparently drawing Social Security benefits. It's appalling.
It is appalling, and I wish anybody that's on the fence on DOGE, for whatever reason, has become a hot topic. Invest 30 minutes. Brett Baer did an amazing job on that interview with the whole DOGE team. First of all, they're not kids. I think people want to say the DOGE team is just a bunch of kids. These are billionaires, Fortune 500 CEOs and executives that are doing it for one reason. They love this country. It's their way of giving back, and they know that if we don't, we could lose this country and our way of life forever. And all of those promises that we made to seniors and veterans won't have a way of being fulfilled.
Of course, this is the country that has invented some of the most widely used technology in the world. And yet when it comes to applying that technology to our government, DOGE is finding that, well, we don't seem to be able to manage that very well. Listen.
By some estimates, government IT costs about $100 billion, and it's funding systems that are over 50 years old, in the case of something like Social Security or the IRS. So really critical systems are old, they cost a lot of money to maintain, and they could be, the efforts to improve them are often very delayed. So I thought I'm a software engineer that maybe can make a difference here.
I mean, you know, most Americans, if they have a laptop computer, they keep it, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, and then they go get a new one. It sounds like the government hasn't been doing that.
We have not been doing it. We had a hearing on Ways and Means, listening to people at the IRS who it was lost in translation. They're still using technology in the 70s to collect taxes. In many instances, it is almost more expensive to collect money than it is to let people direct file on a variety of different levels. We've got work to do. I am grateful for the DOGE committee and their team to do it, and hopefully they'll know that there's some American people that are grateful for their service, grateful for their work, and want them to continue on their mission. I can tell you this: the American taxpayer is dancing in the street right now, finally getting some accountability, getting some spotlight on some of the ridiculous things our government does with their tax money.
And just tell us briefly about the separation between Elon Musk's DOGE efforts and your DOGE efforts in Congress. What are the
So, John, I co-chair a DOGE caucus. It's made up of members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. We're committed to codifying in law some of the DOGE reductions of efficiency and reductions. A bill that was filed, that I filed just recently, is put your money where your mouth is. It says to members of Congress that we have to cut ourselves. Our operating budget should be cut by at least 5%. That's something that I think a lot of people can agree on. No one is immune, not even members of Congress.
All right, Congressman Aaron Bean, we wish you well as you try to get all of this straightened out. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Absolutely.
Hey, click here to subscribe.
We wish
to the
him
Fox
well.
News channel.
Hit the like and subscribe button, guys. Much appreciated. Go check out my new states to Spain, and then moving from Spain to Montenegro. Definitely go check out my newest video. Hit the subscribe button. Much appreciated, guys. Peace out.